Good?
I'm ready.
Alright. I want you to imagine this scenario. Let's say you're home at night, your mom made a nice dinner, and you have some amazing news to tell. Whether it be a promotion at your job, or something regarding your recent relationship, or more realistically, let's say that psychology final, you just aced it after spending 4 weeks studying really hard for it. Let's say you're done with your story, and you look at everyone around you, but no one has given you eye contact. Everyone's looking down at their phones, emailing, texting, or on some social networking site. How would you feel if this happened to you? The sad story is that this happens to a lot of families throughout the United States and even all over the world. And what motivated me to research this topic is that actually last week, my sister was caught on her iPhone during one dinner session, and my mom goes to her, when your father and I were your age, we didn't have all this social networking. The dinner table was used for communication, not texting your friends. And so this is what motivated me to research this topic. And upon researching this topic, I discovered that there is in fact a standard for good communication, and that social media actually disrupts this standard. Today I would like to share with you what I have learned, what the standard of good communication is, how social media disrupts this standard, and what you can do to unplug from your social media connections and establish more human connections. First, I'd like to share with you the standard for effective communication. Upon my research, I stumbled upon a site named psychologytoday.com, which is a website where psychologists post blogs and articles relating to any psychological work they may have deduced. One article that I found named Facebook versus Face-to-Face that was posted on October 13th, 2010 by Dr. Anna Nogales, who is a clinical psychologist, states that some key factors to good communication is body language, voice inflection, facial expression, and eye contact. She also argues that facial expression, physical gestures, and the emotional tone in your voice is what alters the meaning of your words. Another reference that I have is Sherry Turkle, who I found a podcast interview with, and she has a PhD in sociology and personality psychology. She argues that one of the main key factors for good communication is communicating face-to-face without the use of cell phones or any other social media device, especially at the dinner table. Now that we know what the standard for good communication is, let's see how social media fails to reach this standard. One thing that Anna Nogales argues is that the absence of face-to-face communication is what the main factor that contributes to social media not reaching this standard. She says that through texting and emailing, words can be misinterpreted and convey the wrong message. Emotion is also missing when you're talking in text and email. And also body language, facial expression, and tone, which I argued earlier is the main factors for the standard of good communication, is absent when you're texting someone. Sherry Turkle says that the psychological effects of social media usage is one thing called the phantom ring, which some of you may know as when you assume or you think your phone is vibrating, but it's really not. And another thing she argues is that the new generation of children, they don't know the difference between what's alive and what's not. They assume anything that moves is alive, such as clouds, which we all know they're not alive. They're not alive. Yeah. And an example she gives is she was at the National Museum of Natural History with her daughter, and they went into the reptile exhibit. And as you know, it's a whole bunch of stuffed animals, real animals that have stuffing in them. And one of the reptiles she saw was a turtle, and the daughter says it might as well be a robot. And although it might not seem like a big deal, Sherry argues that with this mindset, they're trying to substitute anything that's not mobile with technology. And social media, as you know, like let's say Skype, you're messaging someone, children is going to think that's real communication when it's not. Now that you know how social media fails to reach the standard of effective communication, let's see how one can unplug from your social media connections. But first, I just want to show you this graph. which some of you may recognize from my last presentation. This is just a graph that shows the increased usage of Facebook and internet users throughout the globe. As you can see, the world population almost is close to 7 billion people. And from 2004 to 2013, it has climaxed to more than 1 billion users. So with this trend increasing, just imagine, let's say 5 years, this may, with my assumption, can even excess maybe around here in 5 years. And so with social media affecting, not reaching the standards of good communication, just imagine what will happen to our next generations. Now I'd like to share with you what you can do to unplug from your social media connections. One thing that Sherry Turkle argues, even though it may seem self-explanatory, is sending fewer texts, spending less time on social networking sites such as Facebook, and more face-to-face communication instead of relying only on your cell phone, Facebook, or Skype to communicate with friends and family. Sherry also argues that walking outside with younger generations, since they absorb things like a sponge, don't text on your phone, don't use your phone as much, because then they'll think it's alright to use it whenever they want to. And now as for establishing more human connections, Dr. Nogales also says that for her clients, what she recommends is you speak a sentence 3 times, but each time you speak your sentence, you express a different attitude. For example, let's say you're saying to a friend, "I'm sorry, I couldn't make it, but something else came up." She would want you to say something in frustration, sarcasm, and then compassion, versus you texting it to someone where without any little smiley faces, they won't know what your mood is. And the final thing, which Dr. Nogales, Sherry Turkle, and Dr. Clifford Lazarus, who is a licensed psychologist, say the main key factor is eye contact. In conclusion, it is difficult to imagine our lives without social media, but it is important to know that it does in fact distort our standard of good communication. I'm not saying to completely isolate yourself from social media, but instead limit your use of it and lower your usage, especially if you're someone who actively uses social media. Thank you.
Thank you. It's about 7.5 minutes.
7.5.